Hello again. This is the 19th of June 2021 and this is yet another Orty Thoughty. Today I am going to talk a little bit about memory. Which is another of those autistic traits that doesn't really get a lot of attention for some reason, but it does affect us quite a lot. It's another of those traits which for most of us, obviously for some of us it does become a very big problem. It's not necessarily debilitating for most of us. It's more a little bit annoying. Of course, some people aren't affected by it at all, as it's the nature of autism in general. It is a spectrum. So I'm going to talk about how it is for me personally. Try and describe my own memory issues. Obviously, as I say, it's not the same for everybody. I'm only talking for myself here, and maybe occasionally people I have talked to about the subject. It is another of those that can go either way. We can have very strong memories or very weak memories. Me personally, I have a very long, clear, well-defined long-term memory. I have many very vivid, detailed memories from being 2-3 years old, maybe even before that. If you have your little glimpses of life as a very small toddler. But my short-term memory has always been a little bit lacking. I'll try and describe how it is. You know how, when people are getting a bit middle-aged, they start sort of making jokes and sharing things on Facebook about, oh, I had a bit of a senior moment today. I walked into a room and I forgot what I went in for. Oh, I walked down to the post office and I forgot to take the parcel. That kind of thing. And that's just how I've been all my life. I kind of assumed everyone was until I realised that it was an autistic trait to have a bad short-term memory. And then suddenly it's one of these things that, it suddenly everything kind of clicks into place when you read about all these kind of lesser known traits. And realise that, that is something that kind of sets me apart from other people in a lot of ways. And again, it's another of those cases where that I've talked about in previous videos, that I've sort of learned about it as an autistic, but I've also learned about it as, a way that allistics behave. It did suddenly make, a lot of things that I've noticed throughout my life have made a lot more sense since I realised that, it's my short-term memory that is lacking. It's not everybody else who is sort of putting something on, in a way. It's not something that's got better or worse as I've got older. When I was a child, I'd do things like forget to do my homework. I didn't not do my homework because I'd wanted to be a bit naughty, a bit rebellious. I didn't do it because I was busy every night or anything. I just genuinely forget that I had homework to do fairly often. And things like people's birthdays. I can tell you when all my family's birthdays are. But the thing is, unless I really make a plan, right, on Tuesday I'm going to go and get my mum's birthday card and write it, and then I'll see her on Wednesday so I can give it to them. Yeah, unless I actually make a plan like that and, make a real effort to try and stick to it and write myself reminders, I will often forget to buy people's birthday cards and things. Like when I was a teenager, Mum would say to me, "Oh, have you sent your daddy's birthday card?" I'd say, I forgot." And she'd say, "Well, you obviously don't care very much about your dad if you don't send him a birthday card. He always sends you one." It's things like that. And I think, well, I do care about my dad. I do want to send my dad's birthday card. I do want to remember his birthday and things. But it's one of those things I just wouldn't remember unless. But I made myself a little note, wrote it on my calendar. Sort of marked down. Sort of repeated to myself several times like a little mantra. I need to get my dad's birthday card. And I mean, I do those things habitually now. But if I didn't, I would forget. And I still do things, like I will, say I'm going to my friend's house and I've got something that I've borrowed to take back to her. I'll leave it by the door when I'm going to see her. But then it's 50-50 whether I will actually remember to pick it up as I go out of the door. It's just things like that kind of make me seem a bit scatterbrained. But it is that I'm genuinely forgetting. It is just that I can mean to do something and then it just vanishes from my head. That's just how my mind doesn't work, And it does surprise me as well sometimes that people who know me often describe me as being sort of very organised and very reliable and things. And I do wonder it's because I get sort of quite stressed about, not wanting to be late, not wanting to forget anything. And, I do kind of make myself these reminders and make such an effort to remember everything because I know there's a 50-50 chance I'm going to forget. And, I do make such an effort to get it right that it tends to work most of the time. Like there've been times that I forgot to go to work, forgot I had a shift that day. Just genuinely didn't turn up at work because I forgot. I mean, because it's happened, because I forgot to go to work, I make sure and note it on my calendar. I make sure that I've sort of memorised what day I need to go before I go to bed at night. I check. And I think being an adult with, my own home and a child to look after, and I do have a lot of, very important things to remember. And because it is so important, because no one else is going to do things for me, like make my son's dinner or clean my house or go to the supermarket. I do really need to find ways, foolproof ways of remembering to do all these things at the right time. And I've been doing all these things for, all my life, as long as I can remember, all my adult life at least. So I know what works for me. I know how to sort of repeat things to myself, leave myself notes, to put things where I will see them and remember that I need to do something. It does make me wonder what will happen as I get older, Because, I mean, memory loss is one of those things that people do talk about as an ageing thing. As I was saying earlier, you know, I must be getting old. I walked into a room and forgot what I went in for. It makes me wonder how that will affect me. Will it affect me? Will I just carry on at this sort of baseline that I've always been at? Will it get worse? Will I just get so adept at reminding myself to do everything that, you know, it won't actually make much difference, but, you know, people think that I'm particularly well organised. I don't know. I do wonder if, you know, a lot of the psychological issues that autistic people are particularly prone to, you know, like anxiety and OCD and things, are, if not caused by short-term memory problems, significantly exacerbated. As I started to analyse, you know, my own anxiety issues and sort of trying to fathom exactly what it was that I was worried about, you know, were there any common themes? And I'm worried about losing things. I worry about forgetting to do something. Because these are things that often happened to me when I was a child, before I developed all these coping mechanisms. And again, kind of social anxieties. It's not always about making some sort of faux pas or, you know, not really knowing what someone's talking about. It's things like, you know, calling someone the wrong name, or you know, being late to a meeting, things like that. That, you know, are perhaps part of, you know, my lack of trust in my own memory. But yeah, my long-term memory is particularly good, which is a mixed blessing. You know, I remember the bad stuff as well as the good stuff. And it's interesting having, you know, a 3-year-old child as well, because I clearly remember being 3 years old. And things like, you know, when I wipe his face with a dishcloth, I remember my nan wiping my own face with a dishcloth, and I feel it all over again. You know, when I'm putting his arms in his coat, it just takes me back, you know, just for a second. I'm 3 years old again, having my own arms pushed into a coat. It's very vivid. You know, I remember. I almost kind of fall through a time slip sometimes. You know, any time I lose concentration, I can just fall into any period of my life, any moment. Yeah, I might just be at work, zoning out a bit as I'm scanning someone shopping, and suddenly, you know, it's 1992, and I'm running across the playground at primary school, and I've found a feather, and I'm looking at my feather, and I'm sort of waving it in the breeze, and I can feel the wind moving this feather around in my hand, and I'm seeing what it does and how it sort of turns and moves, and then you know, I'm back in the room. You know, just snapping in and out of it. And dreams as well. I remember dreams very vividly, and I have dreams that have stuck with me and affected me quite strongly. You know, going back to being maybe 3-4 years old. And sometimes I'll be in a place where I've not been before, and it'll remind me of a dream I've had. And it's very odd. It's kind of like deja vu, but I know where I've seen it before, even though it wasn't real. I know I've not been there before. I just dreamed somewhere that looked a bit like this. It does become a bit difficult as well talking about my past. With people who are the same age as me, because I remember things that they don't. I've got a cousin who's about a year and a half older than me, and we used to play a lot together when we were kids. And last time I talked to her, I was saying, "No, do you remember when we used to go to the market with Nan, and she'd put us on that little roundabout, and it was 20 pence a go, and it didn't have a motor; there was just someone pushing it round. Do you remember that little roundabout that we used to go on?" I said, "No, don't remember that at all." And I sort of talked about a lot of things from our childhood that she just had no idea about. She had no memory of, toys that we used to have, or days out that we'd been on, or, places we used to go with our grandparents. And I didn't know at the time whether she was just being a bit kind of obtuse, whether she didn't really want to talk about these things, or she was just finding the conversation boring, so we say, "No, I don't remember," or what. But yeah, I realise now it is that, my memory works differently to hers, because she's, as far as we're aware, neurotypical. And their memories don't have this sort of same capacity for storing the minutiae of everything they've ever done. And I also have a particularly good memory for dates. Especially years that things have happened. It does bother me a bit when, someone's talking about something that happened in the past and say, "Oh, when was that?" And they'll say, oh, ages ago. I'll say, what's ages ago? Was it 10 years ago? 20 years ago? I'll say, "Oh, I don't know." Well, I suppose when I was a kid. And it's like they don't even care how long ago it was. Whereas if I'm telling someone a story, I'll say, "Oh, that happened in 2003. Like I was talking to one of our customers once, and I thought I recognised, I thought maybe we'd been at school together or something. I said, "Oh, did you used to go to Hunger Hill School?" And she said, "Oh yeah, I did." And "Oh, what year were you there?" And she couldn't remember the year she left school. And I thought, how can you not remember the year you left school? I wrote that down on every job application I've ever filled in. The year I left school. And it's a big life event, isn't it, leaving school? Maybe not as much as the year you were born, but it's a major thing. It's like sort of moving house, or I'd have thought, but clearly not. And yeah, that is an annoyance. Dealing with other people's lack of memory. And that is something that has always bothered me all my life. Like my mum would tell me a story about when she was a little girl, and I'd say, "Well, how old were you?" And she'd say, "Oh, I was a little girl." I'd say, "Well, what's a little girl? Were you 5? Were you 10? I'd say, "Oh, don't know." How can you not know how old you were when this event happened? Yeah, it is a blessing and a curse having a very long memory. I remember the good things, I also remember the bad things. I'm often useful to people who are trying to remember when something happened or a particular event. I often find myself the only one who really knows what the conversation I'm trying to have is about. But no, there is no upside to having a bit of a faulty short-term memory. I've got to say, it's just an annoyance. I suppose you can count having lots of effective memory aids to be an upside, perhaps. I don't know. I mean, everybody forgets things. Everyone has little brain farts, you know. Everybody makes mistakes. It's just that I tend to do it twice as much as everybody else, unless I make a particular effort not to. And it is an effort, you know. It's a big effort not to. As I say, now I am a mum and a homeowner, and you know, I've got my own car and my own pets and things that I'm solely responsible for. I've got a lot of big things to remember. I've got to remember to, you know, pay my insurance. I've got to remember to, you know, turn up at work every day. I've got to remember to look after my son. I've got to remember to keep my house tidy. That kind of thing. On top of all the kind of social arrangements and things that I've always had to remember, which you know, I can end up getting distracted with things. I can forget to leave myself reminders. I will just talk a little bit about executive dysfunction. I mean, executive dysfunction is it's not the same as forgetting to do something. It's not something I suffer from myself, so I can't talk about it firsthand. But you know, I think the description that I found most useful was you feel that one task is being broken down into hundreds of little tasks. For example, if you wanted to make your dinner, but you had executive dysfunction, you wouldn't think, right, I'll go and put my dinner on soon. You'd think, right, I've got to get the pans out, I've got to get the utensils out, I've got to get all the stuff out of the cupboard, I've got to defrost the meat, oh, I haven't defrosted the meat, oh, and I need to do this again, I need to put the water in the pan, I need to put the vegetables in the water, you know, and it comes out as hundreds and hundreds of tiny little tasks that all jumble together, and you can't remember what you need to do first, and you can't do one thing until you finished another, and it just becomes a completely overwhelming mess of minute tasks that you need to have done in the correct order, and you can't quite work out what goes first, what comes last, what you're aiming for, how you begin. And you end up not doing anything because everything's just becomes such a huge weight of responsibility. And it is something it's an autistic trait. It's listed as an autistic trait, but it's not something that all of us have or that all of us suffer from all the time. As with everything else, really. Yeah, as I say, it's not something that I do suffer from, but this kind of short-term memory thing, it can have very much the same effect. And the two do blend into each other to a certain degree. You know, if you mean to do your task, you know, if you mean to do, say, your housework, and you are trying to remember it, you know, it does become a big issue. You know, you need to remember all the things you need to do today. Oh yes, I need to vac, I need to dust, I need to clean the windows, I need to tidy up the bookshelf, I need to do this, that and the other. And it becomes a lot of things to remember. You know, if you're used to forgetting things, if you have to make lists to remember to get all those things done, you know, it does become a big issue. It's not quite the same as executive dysfunction in that you don't sort of break it down into tiny tasks that become hugely overwhelming. But it does sort of end up being that you often don't do all the things you mean to, that an holistic person might just sort of get on with without really thinking about, or at least not to nearly the same extent. That's pretty much everything I have to say about memory, I think. If anyone has anything to add, share your own story, share your own feelings about being an autistic person with a clunky memory in the comments. And I'll see you in the next one.